Tomorrow's the big summit meeting, and ahead of that, Alka Acharya, former member of the National Security Advisory Board, Maruf Raza is back with us. D.S. Rajan is director of the Chennai Center for Chinese Studies. Also with us is Subramanian Swamy, who has strong views on this, president of the Janata Party, and Professor Kashi Ram Sharma is former head of the Department of East Asian Studies at Delhi University. Thank you very much. Let me take your views first. Subramanian Swamy, do you think this China is becoming more and more insecure about being encircled? What is the reason for this sudden, concern that China has, that it's being encircled by Japan, Australia, South Korea, Vietnam, India, America, all working together?
Well, first of all, it's an article in the People's Daily, which has a long history of writing articles which are analytical from their point of view. It's not necessarily a representative of what the government thinks or what China thinks. I won't overdraw on that, but I should say that China is concerned, will be concerned and should be concerned, just as we are concerned when they build harbors from Gwadar in Pakistan to Hamantota in Sri Lanka and all the way to Burma, and we call that a string of pearls. So expression of these concerns doesn't necessarily mean anything more than just that.
Okay, but what is the reason for this concern? Maruf, let me get your perspective on this. This whole business of China saying that India is attempting to encircle it. What's the basis of this, essentially?
For too long, the Chinese establishment had become used to a rather passive approach by officials in South Block here, who were carrying out a policy, as some would say, a hangover of Nehru's obsession with not upsetting China post the humiliation of '62. And therefore, even when China, as Mr. Subramanian Swamy rightly brought out, was bringing a string of pearls across India's harbors, from Burma on one side to the Gwadar port in Pakistan, which has clearly been set up by China, to access the warm waters of the Arabian Sea, more importantly for China to get energy resources shortcutting through Pakistan and going through the Xinjiang region into China. But China has also, as your channel has repeatedly brought out, aggressively covered the space between India and China. They've had a lot of aggressive patrolling. They've tried to confront our patrols. They've shown military posturing. More recently, they had an air-land exercise where they even used Sukhoi fighters in the Tibetan region. So with all that in mind, China was expecting India to just lump it. But I think now the aggressiveness in a very subtle way, that diplomacy is now putting pressure on China, I think it is a good move without being confrontationist.
Yeah.
To send a message to China that we don't need to sort of lie down and take it all, but we have our own ways of making a concert of democracies and concert of countries around China, so that China then knows that if any one of these countries that China upsets, for example, China has been having maritime issues with Japan and has always made Japan very nervous. And then you have India and Japan now, the two second and third largest economies of Asia, who are trying to contain the dominance of the dragon, as it were. And I think even the United States would see this as a positive development without India really becoming a full-time American satellite. But the democracies of the world get together and tell China, find your growth story, your aggressiveness is a good thing, but up to a point.
Okay, so Alka Acharya, isn't that the true new reality, that China is trying to be established its hegemony in this region, whether it's Ceylon or Bangladesh or Myanmar, and we are responding by saying that it's high time Beijing understands we are ready here for eyeball-to-eyeball strategic, battle if required. We are not going to shy away from it. It's a new and assertive India in that sense. Dr. Acharya.
Well, I think what we are talking about here is a matter of perception. We are looking at certain things from our point of view, just as this current article, which is now the focus of our discussion, is a perception from China. And whose perception, as was pointed out in the beginning? I mean, we should understand whose perception are we talking about. Is one commentator here and one commentator there, or a set of strategic perceptions on either side, which do not necessarily become official policy or a neat cut and dried case for intentions on either side. I think you have a large number of statements from both leaders which are talking about there being enough space. They're talking about competition but within managed limits. They're talking about
diplomatic
the need
talk.
for greater and greater. So,
that's diplomatic talk.
Well, this then is strategic.
No, that's
okay,
diplomatic talk. That's diplomatic niceties.
Right, and then this is strategic talk. So strategic talk will take hawkish postures or it will take perceptions to the kind of logical limits
but
where it
Dr.
goes.
Acharya,
so it's, you know,
Dr. Acharya, my question is, and I want to go across to Dr. Rajan on this. Can we, Mr. Rajan, look the other way and pretend there is no fight for influence between India and China in the whole East Asian region? Isn't that a reality as well?
I think I will first make some comments on this particular article. I join with others in noting that the article does not reflect the official opinion in China. We have to make a clear distinction between official opinion and opinions expressed in the articles. Secondly, the article has come closely after PM's Japan visit. Thirdly, the article has appeared prior to President Obama's scheduled visit to India. And I have also found the accusations are old. China had accused in the past of US, Japan and India networking which can suffocate India. So I think we have to look at, as far as the significance of this article is concerned, these words will be enough. I think there is definitely, but it does not mean to deny that there is some concern, there is existence of some concerns on the part of Beijing towards the developing situation, particularly in East Asia.
But why would we want to underplay those
India.
concerns? No, an article would not appear this article by Li Hongmei would not appear in the People's Daily if it was completely against the point of view of the Chinese government, would it? Subramanian Swamy, okay, it's not the official line, but it's not against the official line either.
Yeah, you don't have to pose it in black and white. It may not be, they certainly will not allow People's Daily to publish something which is totally against the government view. But this is not against the government view. This is neither for the government view nor against the view. They are expressing a view that there's an encirclement. That's a new development. India is for the first time. I'm happy that we are breaking the old Nehruvian fixation with Europe and now looking east. And Mr. Manmohan Singh has done very well on this. And naturally, China is taking notice. But I don't think this amounts to a warning or anything of that kind. They are warning their own people that, look, India is developing relations in all this area and they've got something to worry about. After all, their economic lifeline is East Asia. If East Asia stops exporting semi-processed goods to China, which China then processes and exports it to Europe and the United States, China will be finished. If supposing tomorrow Japan and Taiwan and all these countries decide to send the semi-processed exports via India, well, what will happen to China's foreign exchange reserves? They will all evaporate. So they have a concern and they are expressing it, and I don't think we should be unduly excited about it.
My question to Professor Kashiram Sharma is, I'm sorry for coming to you so late. Professor Sharma, tell me, should we become an easy participant in the American game? It's not just Indian game to encircle China. It's an American game as well. Should we become such a willing participant in this whole big global game that's going on?
I will say 2 points. Number one, India is improving its relations with America. The whole nation agrees. I am happy. It's an occasion to celebrate. India is not a banana republic. India is nobody's ally. India is emerging. My second comment is, I will look at China in 3 ways. China is a friend, is a collaborator to a certain extent. China is a competitor, and ultimately, I don't agree with Acharya, ultimately I look at China as a conflictual relationship with India. We have to keep these 3 dimensions in mind. I repeat, to a certain extent we have to collaborate with them, culturally, economically, commercially, or when Uncle Sam gives me a pinch, I will like to have some kind of understanding with China. Secondly, China is my competitor, serious competitor. China is my economic competitor. China is my diplomatic competitor. Even China is my ideological, political competitor. I will like to tell my Chinese friends, if you want to go democratic, please learn few lessons from India.
Right.
And finally, although many people say that there is enough scope for both of us to emerge, and people use the word Chindia, China plus India, but personally I am of the opinion that beyond a point, India's relations with China are of a conflictual character. That conflict has not arrived today. I should not be misunderstood. That conflict may arrive, maybe after 20 years, may not arrive, but I am not so positive that it will not arrive.
Yep.
I mean, China is talking like a hegemon.
Absolutely.
Who has given this right to China that India should not look east?
Yep.
China is talking to Ceylon.
Yes.
China is talking to Myanmar.
Yes.
China has a special relation with Pakistan.
Yes.
China is very pally with Nepal. I have not told China that you get lost. Therefore, why China should give me a lesson? Does China is telling me that China has a sphere of influence in that part of the world? If it is a sphere of influence theory, then I'm afraid it smells colonial.
Well, Professor Sharma, you put your views very strongly, and we know the Chinese put their views very strongly. You made a few observations to what Dr. Alka Acharya said. I want Dr. Alka Acharya to respond to that. Because, you know, there is a strong feeling, it emerges all the time, that vis-a-vis China, we want to get lost in generalities. We don't want to be specific. We don't want to talk about a strategic battle that's emerging, a global sphere of influence. We want to be evasive and defensive. That's the general view, Dr. Acharya.
No.
Now the time has come to be direct about China. Which China?
No, I am not at all debating or contesting the fact that there are strong opinions on either side regarding the strategic ambitions or the strategic nature of this relationship. There are strong views. There are equally views which reflect other positions. Now, my point is that we are trying to make news here, or are we trying to make sense of what is happening? We want a discourse on the strategic nature of this relationship. By all means, let's explore all the possibilities and let's go along realistic, not so realistic, what are the possibilities, and let's examine the kind of range of options India has to deal with what is seen as a strategic challenge. On the other hand, we are talking, I mean, we can't just keep on saying there is collaboration also, there's competition also, but fundamentally, what is the nature of this relationship? If we are saying that there is a conflictual aspect and this is bound to take us in a certain direction, I'm not so certain whether, you know, we need to go along such kind of a self-fulfilling prophecies all the time. I think if we are consciously fashioning a relationship which is taking a collaborative role as the linchpin of the new order in Asia, and if we are trying to say that both India and China will, if they go on this conflictual path, will inevitably mess up any chances that Asia has to emerge, then we have
what we are saying here.
But if we are
what we are saying here, Dr. Acharya.
No, what you are saying here is that these are competing hegemonies and that these are going to inevitably clash. And my point is that if we are looking at this framework, then by all means, as I said, let us take this argument to its logical.
No, my question was this. There is a reality. I think Professor Sharma puts it very candidly. There is a reality. There is competition between India and China on the economic front. What we are talking about tonight on the news are ahead of that big meeting between Wen Jiabao and Dr. Manmohan Singh is that strategically there is also competition emerging. We are siding with the Americans.
I am not.
I was only questioning whether that's the right thing to do or whether we are going blindly into this whole...
No, I am not questioning. No, I am not questioning a reality. As I said, reality can be perceived differently. There are different perceptions. If there is a reality which is showing you that these are competing hegemonies, there is another reality, a bigger reality, which is showing us that these are not necessarily going on a conflictual path.
I'm getting responses.
Competition need not be conflict.
Okay. Dr. Acharya, very articulate points of view. I don't think Professor Sharma is agreeing with you. I'm now going to take reactions. Maruf wants to respond. Dr. Rajan, just coming to you after that, and I can see Subramanian Swamy is also getting charged up to respond to some of the points. First, Maruf, go ahead. Maruf, how plain should we be with the Chinese tomorrow?
Like to my responses to Dr. Alkacharya's points are as follows. Firstly, America and China, look at their case study. They're both cooperating and they are in conflict with each other in terms of space, in terms of where China sees the mandate of heaven leading Beijing, and how China sees the possibility of trying to dominate the world 25 years down the line. You go to Washington, talk to any policy analyst, and he's pretty obsessed with what China is thinking and what China is doing. The second point which I want to bring out is, as far as India is concerned, let's hope this time Dr. Manmohan Singh really stays the course with our look east policy. In earlier occasions, ASEAN countries have been a bit disappointed that India looked east and then began to look west again.
That's true.
So this time, I think that's the issue at hand.
Okay,
the third
Maruf.
point, which Dr. Sharma did, or no, the last point that Dr. Sharma did bring out, please, we must understand that because the true nature of the political systems being different, China being a totalitarian system, ours being an open democracy, we are obviously going to be at conflict in principle in terms of how we approach the world. And therefore, the concerns the People's Daily has been highlighting is pretty much the concern of Beijing, whether people say it's the mouthpiece or not. I know, from what little I know, people don't write in China things which Beijing doesn't approve.
Well, that point takes me to Mr. Rajan. Mr. Rajan, you were saying that this is not the view of the government of China, but this would not be against the view of the government of China either?
First of all, I retain the position that it does not reflect the government opinion. I just want to add up to the discussions which have so far been going on. India should not be seen as ganging up against China. It is not in our interest. We should not. Secondly, China is showing two faces to India. One is diplomatically a very, very genuine, it's a very warm face towards India. But in strategic matters, it is speaking in different language. Even in actions, it is acting differently, particularly on China is being seen as departing from its traditional neutral stand on Kashmir, etc. So what we have to do is, I think, we have to engage China, but at the same time, we should take care in protecting our strategic interests.
Okay, I want Subramanian Swamy. I'm coming back to you, Professor Sharma, for the last word. Subramanian Swamy, specifically respond to the point being made here by Mr. Rajan. It is not in India's interest, he says, to be seen to be ganging up. Ganging up is the word he used, against Beijing.
In fact, it is.
Yeah, with whom can we gang up? The Americans are not going to agree to gang up with you against China. We are heading for a triangular relationship in the world. In another 10 years, the three largest GNPs will be India, China, and the United States. The three most populous countries of the world will be India, China, United States. And we should try to work out a triangular relationship. I don't think the Americans will ever agree to gang up with you against China. And I don't think we need to gang up with China against the United States. We need to work out a stable equilibrium in the world, with the three of us coming to some understanding on basics.
Yeah.
As far as China, India is concerned, for 2,000 years we never had a problem. And this is complete contradiction with what we saw in Europe, where every two neighbors fought like cats and dogs, but we had a stable relationship.
Right.
So I think we can have a working relationship with China, and we should strive on that without being euphoric on one end and very pessimistic at the other end. We should
my last question goes to the most experienced person on the panel, Professor Sharma.
Global powers of the world in the future.
Right. My last question is to Professor Sharma. Your response to the point. You know, America, Barack Obama will try and tell us when he comes here to work with America in serving America's strategic interests here. Mr. Rajan says that is not in our interest, it's in Washington's interest.
I will say
I do not know.
two things, not even two. In fact, I will say only 1.5 things. India is not anybody's ally. India is not a running dog of the Americans. India is independent power. China knows it. Secondly, other day I was with a group of Chinese professors. I was debating with them, and I put a question to them. Who threatens China's security? Who threatens you? Are you feeling threatened from America? They said no. I asked them, are you feeling threatened from India? They said no. This whole bogey of containment of China is a bogus bogey, believe me. And let us be realistic in this country. Let us be a little bit more realistic. Unless India acquires more power, unless India improvises its skill to negotiate, unless diplomatically we throw our weight around, China will not take us seriously.
That's important.
The moment India improves its diplomatic skill, I'm sorry to say publicly, we Indians are very emotional. Chinese are very calculating. In China, negotiation is taught in the colleges.
True.
Negotiation is an art.
True.
This art emerges from strength. It emerges from diplomacy. Therefore, in one sentence I will say, let's not feel panicky.
Okay.
Let us be sure more about ourselves. Let us strengthen our wits. Let us strengthen the material base of our power. Let us strengthen our soft power. China is obsessed with the hard power. In international politics, the hard power alone does not matter.
True.
Soft power is equally important.
True. Well.
And finally, don't be worried. Finally, don't be worried.
Okay. Well, Professor Sharma, you've said it all. And I think we all respect your experience and also the experience of all our panelists. We have different points of view. I want to tell our viewers live coverage of the Wenjiabao Manmohan Singh meeting is coming to you on this channel live from Hanoi all the day tomorrow. Srinjoy Chaudhary is reporting live from there. I'll see you again tomorrow, same time, with that story and much more on the News Hour. Good night. Goodbye.